Hi guys, my name is C.L. Creech. I am the author, creator, and publisher of a book called One Last Quest, of which I'm reading for you all through the month of June. Hopefully you've been following along through the first 10 chapters. If not, you're going to be a little bit lost this morning, or this evening, I should say, because we are starting on chapter 11. If you're not caught up, go go listen to the other chapters first, or better yet, just read my book. You can buy it on Amazon or wherever books are sold. The Amazon link's down below. But anyway, we're starting today on chapter 11. So let's get right into it. Michelle was the first one to wake up. It was very early morning and the sun had just started to peek over the horizon. It was very warm, but there was a slight chill in the air. Michelle sat next to the lake, staring out at the fog rising from the water. With all the chaos in her life, it felt good to have a few moments of peace. She was almost in a trance-like state when she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Good morning," Kelly said with a soft, warm smile. "Good morning," Michelle said, looking up at her. Kelly could tell by looking in Michelle's eyes that something was bothering her. "Are you okay?" Kelly asked genuinely. "I'll be fine," Michelle replied calmly. Kelly took a long, hard look at the lake, noting how serene and peaceful it was. She knew if she was going to do her part in the quest to help Michelle, this would be the time to do it. Kelly sat down next to Michelle, putting her arm around her shoulder. "Want to talk?" Kelly asked. Michelle felt confused. In all the years she'd known Kelly, she'd never really seen this side of her. Kelly was always so busy that Michelle wasn't sure they'd ever talked one-on-one. Michelle looked over at Kelly. "I'm not sure. I don't know where to start," Michelle said. "Start wherever you feel comfortable," Kelly replied. After a moment of hesitation, Michelle said, I've got a lot going on. And don't get me wrong, I'm having a blast with you guys, but soon I have to go back to reality. Reality where my family hates me and the rest of the world sees me as a freak." Kelly hesitated for a moment. She wanted to choose her next words wisely. Michelle was important to her, and she wanted to let her know that, but she had to do it in just the right way. You know, none of us think you're a freak," Kelly said sincerely. "The five of us may not see each other very much, and we may not be blood, but we're still family. None of us get along, but that's just like a real family. We still love each other." Michelle thought about Kelly's words. She was right. The five of them were just like a real family. They were probably even closer than some actual families. "I guess you and Danny fighting is like a brother and sister," Michelle said with a smile. "Well, then that makes Rick and Jackie the crazy aunt and uncle," Kelly said with a laugh. Michelle stared deeply into Kelly's eyes as they shared a smile. "Well, what does that make me?" Michelle asked. "Maybe the mother?" Kelly asked. Michelle loved how Kelly used a feminine pronoun while referring to her. To be looked at as the mother of the group was a real honor. She knew she could never be a real mother, but as the game master, she could always consider the group her children in some strange way. "I like that," Michelle replied. By this point, Michelle and Kelly's faces were so close that they wondered if they were about to kiss. Michelle thought this would be very awkward, considering they just established that they had a mother-daughter type of relationship. "It's still early," Kelly said, breaking up the awkward moment and standing up. "Everyone else is still asleep. Why don't we go for a walk around the lake, just the two of us?" Michelle was thrilled that Kelly broke up the awkward moment. She was still trying to figure everything out, and if they would have kissed, then everything would have gotten a lot more complicated. "I'd like that," Michelle said as Kelly helped her up. Michelle and Kelly would spend the next bit following a trail around the lake. Michelle told Kelly about everything she had been through over the past few years, about becoming a drag queen and realizing that she was transgender. She also talked about how hard it was to transition and how she never felt like she belonged anywhere. Kelly was very sympathetic to what Michelle was going through. "So, if I understand correctly," Kelly said, "it's taken you a long time to reach the point you are now, and because you're still in transition, you feel uncomfortable with yourself, so you shy away from other people?" Michelle was happy that Kelly was trying to understand what she was going through. Michelle felt her situation was unique and that nobody could ever totally understand, but to see someone at least try made her feel better. "Something like that," Michelle said, thoughtfully. I wanted to wait until I'd saved up a couple of, and had a couple of surgeries before I came back. Wanted to let everyone see me as the woman uh, I'm in the process of becoming, hoping that maybe that would give me some self-confidence. My mom getting sick changed all that. Kelly saw a side of Michelle that she'd never seen before. For the first time, instead of seeing Mike, the game master that she always knew and loved, she saw a beautiful woman standing in front of her. "You should be proud of who you are today," Kelly said sincerely, putting her hand on Michelle's cheek. "You're beautiful." Michelle loved hearing Kelly say that, but it also made her very self-conscious about her flaws. "Are you kidding?" Michelle asked while pulling away from Kelly. "I'm fat." "You are not!" Kelly exclaimed. "Well, I have a gut," Michelle responded. "We all do," Kelly said, trying to comfort her. "I'm covered in scars from a car wreck I had 6 years ago," Michelle continued. "I still have a penis that I can't stand looking at. I have to wear breast forms because even though I'm on hormones, I don't have breasts yet. At least, not real feminine breasts. I need surgery. Right now, I'm not a man, but I'm not a woman yet either." In her mind, Michelle was living in two worlds, one masculine and one feminine, and she didn't belong in either. She desperately wanted to be feminine and become the woman she felt like she was meant to be, but she still had a long way to go. "You're exactly who you're supposed to be at this moment in time. You just have to be comfortable with your own body," Kelly said. "And how am I supposed to do that?" Michelle asked, not expecting an answer. Kelly looked around for a moment, trying to figure out how to help Michelle. She noticed there was nobody around that she could see. She also noted that they were next to a shallow portion of the lake, mostly surrounded by trees and bushes. "I've got an idea. Take off your clothes," Kelly said as she removed her shirt and bra, exposing her bare breasts. "What are you doing?" Michelle asked very confusedly. Michelle had never seen Kelly naked before, and she wasn't comfortable being naked in front of anyone, especially a friend. "Just trust me," Kelly said, pulling off her shorts and panties, exposing the rest of her body. Michelle just stared at Kelly for a moment, wondering if she was crazy or if she had some purpose behind what she was doing. Michelle reluctantly gave in and removed her clothes, exposing her naked body. Kelly walked up to Michelle, staring deep into her eyes and putting a hand on her shoulder. "You're beautiful." "You're beautiful," Kelly said with a warm smile. Michelle was very uncomfortable now. She tried hard to keep her eyes locked with uh, Kelly's. As long as she kept her gaze, she didn't have to look at Kelly's body, and more importantly, Kelly couldn't look at hers. "Are you trying to hit on me like Jackie? Because if you are, I wouldn't have taken," Michelle started to say. "No," Kelly said softly. "Again, just trust me." Kelly walked down into the lake until the water was waist deep. She motioned for Michelle to join her. Michelle had no idea what was going on, and was becoming very scared and uncomfortable, but she felt like she should follow along. After a moment of hesitation, she used her hands to cover her chest and crotch, then joined Michelle in the water. "What are we doing?" Michelle asked. "A lot of people aren't comfortable in their own skin," Kelly said while keeping her eyes locked with Michelle's. "You have to realize that everything you are is part of nature. Your body, your mind, your soul, and your spirit. They're all part of the natural world." "Okay, so why?" Michelle started to ask. "The coven I belong to has a strong emphasis on nature and the natural world," Kelly continued. "We have ceremonies and gatherings where we take off our clothes and dance in the woods, or we go swimming, or we just sit in quiet meditation and enjoy the natural world." Michelle was starting to realize where Kelly was going with all of this. Kelly was trying to show Michelle that her body and the changes she was going through was completely natural. Michelle found it strangely relaxing and calming. Michelle began to get a little more comfortable, dropping her hands and lowering down into the water to cover her body. "Danny told me about your group," Michelle said. Hearing Danny's name mentioned bothered Kelly, who broke her gaze and looked off toward the distant horizon. She took a deep breath to calm herself before speaking again. "When Danny and I were dating, he came with me a few times. It was important to me that he be in tune with the group, but his intentions, let's just say he didn't have the same goals as the rest of us. What do you mean? Michelle asked. Michelle knew Kelly was trying to help her, but she wanted to help Kelly as well. But for Michelle to help, she had to know the whole story of what happened. He's a he's a, he's a total horn dog, Kelly said, trying to open up. Don't get me wrong, I honestly and truly loved him, but he was the horniest guy I'd ever seen. Which was fine when it was just the two of us, but not when we were with the group. Every time anyone would start to take off their clothes, he would get an erection. Now, that's normal for the first time or two. Happens to all the guys who join the group. But by the time you've been there half a dozen times or more, it gets very awkward. Then there was the incident. What incident? Michelle asked. He'd taken some kind of male enhancement pill or something like that before a meeting one night. We were all dancing around having fun. He walked in the woods to masturbate. We caught him and the group kicked him out. It was over for us. Michelle loved Danny, but he'd been like that ever since she'd known him. She wanted to try to defend her friend, but she could now understand why Kelly broke up with him. Ah, okay. Everything kind of makes sense now, Michelle said thoughtfully. Kelly turned back to Michelle, taking her mind off Danny and returning to the quest at hand. Anyway, back to where we were. Michelle watched Kelly duck down, soaking herself in the water of the lake. She came up. When she came up, Kelly cupped some of the water in her hands. Kelly slowly began pouring water over Michelle's head, chest, and shoulders. Our bodies are around 60% water, Kelly said in a relaxed and soothing tone. To be uncomfortable with yourself is to be unhappy with the oceans, or the rivers, or the lakes, Michelle asked almost instinctively. That's right, Kelly responded with a smile. And lakes, just like people, can change over time. Some shrink, or sometimes they shrink, sometimes they grow. Sometimes we build a dam in them or build bridges over them. Sometimes we even build docks so we can enjoy them, so we can more easily enjoy them. Strangely, Kelly's analogy made a lot of sense to Michelle. She'd never thought of her body like that. She'd never seen herself as part of the natural world. It made her feel at peace and almost at one with the water they stood in. Even as she made changes, it was just like building a dock on a lake. The changes that weren't created by nature were there to help her enjoy her natural self so that, let me repeat that. The changes that weren't created by nature were there to help her enjoy her natural self, and that could help everyone, especially herself, appreciate the natural beauty. So even if we change them, they're still beautiful. Maybe even more beautiful, Michelle asked, as if having a moment of enlightenment. Kelly was thrilled that Michelle understood what she was trying to say. Kelly could see the understanding and peace in Michelle's eyes. Michelle now stood fully proud of her natural body. Now you're getting it, Kelly answered. Even though you're changing, you're still beautiful. Maybe even more beautiful. I've known you for a very long time, Michelle. You were beautiful before. You're beautiful now, and you'll be beautiful when you're done. Thank you, Michelle said with a tear in her eye as Kelly locked her into a warm, soft embrace. Michelle felt Kelly's body pressed up against hers. In her mind, Michelle felt she should be uncomfortable, but she realized that their bodies were all part of nature, and that somehow made her very comfortable. You're very welcome, Kelly whispered into Michelle's ear. For what seemed like an eternity, they stayed locked in an embrace. Kelly helped Michelle to realize that, just like the water, she was changing. Michelle knew that over time that she would go through phases and look different in each one, but none of them were any less beautiful than the one before or the one after. Michelle thought of that Kelly's way of delivering the message was a little odd, but it was very effective. If Michelle could, if Michelle could, if Michelle could, she would give Kelly 1,000,000 experience points for what she did for her today. Unfortunately, their warm moment was broken by a noise heard on the shore. What was that? Michelle asked, startled. I bet I know, Kelly said while looking deep into Michelle's eyes. Kelly pulled back from the embrace while covering her bare breast with her left arm and hand. Michelle ducked down in the water to cover her own chest. They both looked to the shore to see Danny standing there looking on. What's going on, guys? Danny said in a very awkward tone. Danny wasn't sure what was going on, but he loved the opportunity to see Kelly in her natural form. He wondered for a brief moment if something was going on between the two of them. He became both jealous and excited at the same time. Get out of here, you pervert! Kelly screamed. Kelly reached down into the water and picked up a very large rock and hurled it toward Danny, hitting him square between the eyes. Danny let out a loud scream before falling backwards and hitting the ground with a large thud. Michelle looked at Kelly, who smiled and just shrugged her shoulders, seeming very happy with herself. Guys, this is one of the most important and meaningful chapters in my entire book. You notice I got tongue-tied a few times reading it because it honestly gives me chills every time I read it. The analogy with the lake and the water was probably one of the best things I've ever written. I hope you guys really got something out of this chapter, and I hope you're enjoying the book so far. I'll be back tomorrow with more. See you soon.